This is a video I'm going to show you how to fix a ding and a fret that is too deep just to be filed down, and you don't want to replace it. So it's not a very difficult procedure, and it's probably the least invasive, least expensive, and if the solder wears out you can always redo it. In fact, if you just don't do a good enough job the first time, you can redo it. I've seen different tips on the internet about some people telling people to file them down, and you never want to file on a fret unless you know what you're doing, because then you'll have some that are higher than the others, and to pay someone $90 to $100 to do a professional leveling on it, if the rest of it doesn't need it, is total overkill. If you bought a really well used guitar that had a lot of really worn out spots on it, and sure, go ahead and pay for full fret leveling, but I think it's overkill. This is a, you're going to have to excuse the slow motion video. I have the exposure turned up for better lighting, but I just did the repair on this bass neck that has the same problem, so I know it works. And I didn't do all the finishing on it because I'm still working on this neck, but I did test it out first. This is a Squire Strat, Infinity Strat, and it has a really bad ding. So the first thing I'm going to do, well, I'll go over the first stuff you're going to need. You're going to need a soldering iron. I'm using a gun in this case. You're probably going to want at least 25 watt to be able to get the fret wire hot enough. This one I had previously filed the point on it, so it was nice and clean and nice angled chisel edge to it. You're going to need some sort of file, whether it's some needle files like these. I got these from Home Depot. I can't remember what I paid for them, but you could probably use just a regular metal manicure file, get from the dollar store. Metal one, probably just because it's easier to manipulate. You're not going to be scratching up a bunch of other stuff. This is some solder. This happens to be silver solder, because somewhere online said it's harder than regular solder. I don't know if that's true or not, but I went ahead and, since I have some silver solder, I used it. Some Q-tips for cleaning the area as you need to. This is some soldering paste flux, which is really helpful. You just need a tiny bit, because two important things for solder to stick is that whatever you're soldering needs to be hot enough, and it has to be clean. So this helps clean the area that it kind of it's paste, and when you hit it with the heat it melts into a liquid and kind of flows, so you need very little. In fact, this tube here, you see the tape is over where I melted through the bottle there, and I touched it with a soldering iron, but this is probably over 20 years old, and it's probably more than 50% full still, so it's very tiny. That's what you use the toothpicks for, so you can really control it accurate. This is a little tinner and cleaner. This one's almost worn out, got a bunch of junk in it, but I got another one somewhere. You need either some painter's tape or some drafting tape, something that's very low tack, because you don't want to mess up the finish on your guitar neck. You don't need these, but I just want to show these off. Some digital calipers I got off eBay for a little bit less than $9 delivered. They're not the 40-something luthier calipers off of Steve Mac, because those have the nice indentation on the bottom for measuring fret wire, but you can still measure the fret heights with a little thing that sticks out. It's not going to go into it, and it doesn't have the notches in the ends to measure the fret tang and whatnot. But for $9 delivered from China, it's an amazing deal, and they work more consistently than the dial calipers that I got. Damp sponge for cleaning the tip. This is 400, 600, and 800 sandpaper. You really probably should get away with 600. 400 takes off a little bit too much, but I'm going to try to do it with just 600. If you have 800, I mean, as far as polishing the frets all the way up, you can get 1,000 and steel wool, but if you're not doing this stuff that often, you could probably get away with just 600 and then some steel wool and then some metal polish, and I'll show you how to round it over and whatnot. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to use one of these files to take off the burr that's sticking up from this. I've already taped this off with the tape, and I'm just going to lightly drag it. Just want to take the edge of that burr off there. Don't want to file on any more of the fret than I have to. and test it. Like that too. And you can kind of I'm testing from each direction, because this one the burr is mostly on one side. Of course it's going to be filed down later, but I don't want it to interfere when you're filing on the solder. Okay, after that's done, this is just some rubbing alcohol, and you can either use rubbing alcohol, you can use naphtha. You can buy naphtha from Home Depot or whatnot. It's lighter fluid. It's a good cleaner, degreaser. You get really nasty, grimy finger wart, it works great for that. But I like to clean up like that, and I'm just going to use the sandpaper 600 grit. Hold it to a crease and just very lightly clean out the notch. Just one or two passes is enough in case there's any dirt or oxidation in there. And then you clean it off again. After that, I'm going to take the paste flux. You want to be careful with that rubbing alcohol because it can start to take away the paint. That's why the naphtha is better, because it evaporates. Naphtha's not as harsh. It's a little safer, especially if you're working on the maple fingerboard. But you really want to get it just in the crease, and you can get just a little bit on each side of it, because once you hit it with a soldering iron, it's going to flow. In fact, let's see, put a little bit too much on this side, so I'm just going to knock off just a little bit. Now this soldering iron, probably make a clicking noise. Oh, okay. I like using these guns, at least for pots, on the back of pots and whatnot. Heats up fast. And I think one comment out there was that if you heat up the fret, it can make it loose, which is possible. So after you put the glob of the solder on there, just let it cool down before you start filing on it. But the flux works good too if you're soldering on the back of a pot. So I get some fine sandpaper. I usually use some sandpaper and I wipe with some rubbing alcohol, and then that's usually good enough for the solder to stick. But if not, you can put just a tiny little bit of that rosin flux work. Okay, so this is first thing I'm just going to do. I'm just going to gently hold it near the crease. The goal is just to heat up the flux, heat up the joint. This has a little bit of solder already on it, so I can see some already sticking on it. In fact, let's see the extra. But then I'm going to go ahead and just put, since that's heated up, right now I'm just going to put a little bit on here. And just hold it near that area, just touching it, rubbing it real good. Not completely. If it's too high, it's fine. If you get a little amount in there, that's fine. You can always file it down. So I'm just going to let that cool down now. What else? I'm going to take some rubbing alcohol. Just want to clean off the excess rosin. Chances are it probably melted down the sides. Okay, so what you got now is like a little mountain peak. And when this cools down, you're going to use your file. I'm using a little pointed half-round file, but again, you can use a regular manicure file, metal one that just has a rough pattern to it. I don't have one handy, but because the emery board and whatnot might get a little bit too unwieldy, but you're just going to take that off, take off the point. You'll see it files pretty easily.